Hey, so this is going to be a video about DID, dissociative identity disorder, and our life with it, I guess. I wanted to come online and I wanted to do this in 2020, and it is currently 4:56 p.m. on December 31st, 2020, and I'm going to film this and put it up right now. And this is where, if I had a real YouTube channel, there would be a flashy edit with some music that said something about what we're gonna talk about. But I don't have any of that yet, so just me talking to the camera, and I'm not even gonna edit this at all. Though the plan is to continue making videos, so we'll see how that goes. I think the hardest part about doing anything like this is doing the first one. So that's why I just decided to jump online and do this today. I guess even though this is just a video of like our story, I should put a disclaimer here that I am not a medical professional. I am not a professional of any kind, actually, and these are like just our experiences. This is not, I'm not making any medical claims here or psychiatric claims or anything like that. This is just one person talking about their experience with dissociative identity disorder, and that's all that this is. So with that out of the way, I should say that I'm very sorry if I seem awkward. I'm not used to fronting and doing something so public while just being myself and not pretending to be the host. So this is weird for me. I keep stopping myself from going into pretend to be the host mode. I'm sure if you have DID or OSDD or something like that, I'm sure you understand pretend to be the host mode. I'm trying not to do that right now. What is this video going to be? I think my intention is to just talk about how we found out this year that we have DID, and just a little bit background about our system, who we are, how we function, that kind of stuff, and then we'll go from there. So I should say first that my name is Gray. I am not the host of our system. I'm not anything close to that, and I keep thinking about how if somebody watches this video who has like known this body for a long time, they'll be surprised at me using that name because they probably haven't heard it before. And that's still a weird thing for me to wrap my head around, like being this open about things. Not that I'm necessarily going to share it with them anyway, but it's still weird, and I'm here processing live on camera for you. I'm sure you've been there before if you understand what I'm talking about at all. This is also not going to be like, I'm not going to go into DID 101 here, so if there are things that you don't understand that I'm talking about in this video, then you probably want to do some DID 101 research first. This video really is for other people who get it, like other systems. I guess that's it. I will probably in the future make more videos that explain things better, but right now I just like want to tell our story, and that's what I'm gonna do. So like I said, my name is Gray. I guess I'm a protector in the system. I kind of just consider myself like the one who gets shit done. I think there's gonna have to be a profanity warning on our channel too, because there's no way around that. I'm the one who makes sure things are taken care of. I'm the one who makes sure we get to our appointments. I'm the one who cleans the house and cooks food and does that kind of stuff most of the time. Not always. Like, everybody helps with everything that they can help with, but a lot of times that's my job. And my job in the past has been to kind of, I wouldn't say gatekeep. I wouldn't consider myself a gatekeeper because I don't keep information from people on purpose, though I am extremely protective of everyone and making sure that nothing bad happens to us, that nothing bad happens from us remembering things that we're not ready to remember yet, things like that. So that's kind of my job, I guess. I would consider myself to be dude-ish is how I describe it. I don't really care. I generally use he, him pronouns just for me. For overall system, we use they, them. Our current host, their name is Juniper. They use they, them pronouns just for themselves. They are non-binary, but we also have others with, I mean, we have a plethora of pronouns and genders and stuff in here, and I think that's pretty typical. But I am just me today, just talking about things from my perspective. And I think I got a little bit lost already. I know this is going to be painful to watch later if you're watching this. Thank you. I'll redo this later and make it more concise. But for now, I just got to do it. So, what happened to us? How did we find out that we have DID? Well, where to start with this? So, we are in our mid-30s. Body age is 36. And long story short is, in January of this year, 2020, I'm still talking about 2020, in January of 2020, we had a 7-day long migraine where a bunch of repressed memories came back. And among those memories were the memory of us having a fully functioning system of alters, and that memory got repressed at about 15 or 16 years old, and it didn't come back to us until this year. So we were 35 at the time. So, like, you know, almost half of our life, we thought that we were just one person functioning in this body and in this world. And it's comical now to think about that. Like, similar to the, like, how did we ever think we were straight situation? Like, how did we ever think we were single? Like, singular? Like, not a multiple person? I don't understand. So what happened was, when we were young, probably about 10, so there's still a lot of memories that are missing, and there are a lot of things that I can't talk about yet because there are other parts of the system who don't know them yet. So I'm only going to be sharing what is common knowledge to the system and like what has kind of been agreed upon to share. And I can't really share somebody else's story for them. So that's that. But when we were about 10 or 11, a big event happened that caused a lot of alters to come into existence, we will say. I'm certain that we had DID before that because I know that I have been around. My earliest memory is probably around 2 or so, 2. Yeah, and I know there are others with memories that are younger who are also not like part of the original core. I don't like any of that terminology, so whoever the outside world would have thought of us as when we were a very small child, there are parts that remember things very, very, very young, like 1-year-old maybe, and those parts are not part of that original whoever people would have perceived us to be, even though that gets complicated. I'll get to that later. Essentially, we don't really have an original or a core anymore at all. Nobody who is currently around was ever who the exterior would have perceived us to be as a child. That altar does not exist currently in the same state anymore. So that's just to get that out of the way. This is going to be a really complicated video if anybody is trying to watch this who doesn't understand DID terminology at all. So basically when we were like 10 or 11, this big event happened and a bunch of altars formed at that time. Like, I only have a few memories from that time, even though I was around then, because that part of our memory is still fairly heavily sectioned off. Like, there is an altar who has most of those memories, and that altar is not currently like in communication with like the few of us who are like often fronting and kind of have good communication. Like, we're working on it. There's a lot of times where we can share memory and stuff. And this altar from that time is not part of that group yet, that we're trying to help get them there. And where was I going with this? Not editing is really hard when you have a dissociative disorder, because I lost my train of thought, and if I don't like talk through it, then I'm just going to be sitting here like so at this time, right, I was saying that I don't have a lot of memories from this time. That's what I said. Back to that. So what I do remember is this thing happened, a bunch of altars came into existence at the time, and the host at the time, and I'm going to use that phrase a lot, the host at the time, because we've had a lot of host changes. Our current host was not the host at the time. The host at the time became aware of the other altars for the first time, and we kind of learned how to communicate. We wrote a lot to each other then. We had a pile of spiral bound notebooks that we would just write to each other, and that was like the only thing we did, honestly, for like months, maybe longer than that. It went on for quite a while. I think we were aware for a couple of years of each other, and we're learning to communicate. We were talking. We had a pile of spiral bound notebooks about this high with all of our writing, and it was very small writing, like edge to edge. We didn't use the margins, like we didn't leave the margins blank. It was just writing all the time. Those notebooks don't exist anymore, sadly, because someone in our life got rid of them, and that's disappointing, because those would be very insightful right now if I had access to them, but I do not. So this went on for a while, and we had a friend who was aware of it at the time as well. We actually had another friend who likely also has DID, and I'm not going to go into more details about that right now, but we did have a friend at the time who also seemed to have alters, and definitely, yeah, we're just going to leave it at that. We had a friend who also had DID, or also likely has DID, and we at least had each other to talk to about it, even though we didn't really understand what was going on. This was pre-internet also. Like, this would have been, 1994, 95 is when this started. So I know we didn't have internet in the house until 97. So, yeah, it wasn't even like a searchable thing. There was like no one to talk to. And the interesting thing was, because of our childhood, and I'm not going to go into any details, so don't worry, there shouldn't be anything super triggering here, but I am just going to give like a very brief overview of our childhood. So if even hearing about major themes would be triggering for you, maybe skip ahead a minute or two. But our childhood was not super easy. We grew up with some things. Sorry, I'm like, wait, I'm hearing word from the back that maybe we shouldn't like delve into this too much just yet. So I'm gonna leave it there. We had a difficult childhood, and because of that, we were in counseling, and we were in like group counseling at school, and we were also like brought to a therapist from 8 to 10 probably, somewhere in there. So all of this was going on, and we were actually also in therapy at the time, but we couldn't really talk about it. Didn't even really realize that this is something we should talk to a therapist about, because I don't know, like when you're that age and things just seem normal, like why would you think it was a problem? I don't know. So we didn't bring it up until okay, so this is where the trigger warning will come in. There is going to be brief mention of suicide attempt here, and I'm not going to go into any detail, so don't worry about it. When we were, I think, 13, we were given Prozac for the first time, and Prozac made us extremely suicidal. We were hospitalized 7 times for attempted suicide and ideation from like 13 to 15, and somewhere in all of that we tried to talk to one of the therapists about what was going on with the others. We didn't have the words for it at the time, but like, you know, the word I would have used at the time is like, sometimes I'm other people, you know, like that's just the words I would have used for it at the time. And yes, I was around at this time, but like, that's complicated. I'll go into that another day. I'm also like, yeah, we'll just go into that another day, or I'll talk about it later. Sorry. As I said, this is a real raw video. So we're hospitalized, right? And trying to talk to a therapist about what's actually going on. And they just straight up don't believe us. They just straight up think we are making things up. They give us antipsychotic medication. Like, there were a lot of things that happened, and at the time we tried to tell somebody who was an adult in our life, and this adult in our life also did not believe us. And because of all of this happening, the not being believed, the frequent hospitalizations, like all of this stuff that was going on, like all in junior high school, and I'm fuzzy on the details on this, but somewhere in there, somebody decided to completely hide the system and repress the memory of having the system. And in this process, sorry, I'll lean forward, I'm playing with lint on the floor. Somewhere in this process, I think there was a host change at this time as well, so that the new host may have even been a new alter. Honestly, this is something we're trying to figure out right now. It doesn't matter either way. There was a host change, and the new host, from about somewhere when we were 15 or 16, was completely unaware of the system, and the rest of the system just kind of got hidden and repressed. And I have found out recently from some people that knew us like through our late teens and 20s that that we told them about the system, that we told them about having this, you know, didn't have the right words for it and probably used the wrong terminology, but we told a couple different people that we have DID, basically. Sometime between 16 and 35. But I had no memory of this. So apparently somewhere in the system repression there was like something that glitched and didn't work quite right, and somebody came out and tried to tell somebody about the rest of the system that was still there, and then it just got shut down again and repressed again. So that happened a few times over the years. And then flash forward to January of 2020, we're out hanging out with a friend. We were actually at like, there's a closeout sale on this like mineral rock shop. I remember this very specifically. So we're at this like mineral shop, buying stuff. I don't know. I bought an ammonite or something. I don't remember. And this friend casually mentions like, oh, hey, so I have DID. So like, if it seems like I don't remember something sometimes, that's probably why, but it's not a big deal. And that was it. That was like the whole mention was like, this friend was like, yeah, so I have DID, just, you know, you should know that. No big deal. And I was like, cool, I know what that is. And then I was like, wait, I know what that is. And then later that night, I went home and got the worst migraine of my entire life. Like the absolute worst headache I've ever experienced. And looked up DID and then started watching like every video I could find about DID. And this wasn't actually me, this was the host, our current host. Junie would have been the one doing this, though I was around also at the time. But they started watching like every video they could find, and it was 7 solid days of migraine with no break and no reprieve. And in that time, all of a sudden it was like, oh, I remember the system. And in that time, I kind of gained self-awareness of myself again as like separate from Junie. And then I started gaining knowledge of like some of the others and started kind of putting the puzzle pieces together of like, okay, well, like roll call, who's still here and like who's here now and where is everybody and like how is this like organized and all of this stuff and like what can we do. But I was still worried that the whole system was just going to get repressed again. So 7 days of a headache, and then a couple weeks of Junie trying to like catch me, basically is what happened. Junie was trying to figure out like who I was and what I was doing and like making sure, I'm laughing because like I kind of feel like an asshole about it now, but at the time I was just worried that everything was going to get repressed again and it wouldn't matter. And my goal is always to make sure that we're safe. And it took a while to realize that our life is very different now and we are safe now. In our life, we are very, very safe right now. And some of the factors that were involved in our childhood being not great are not factors anymore. And that's all I'm going to say about that. We have a really awesome partner that we live with who has been very understanding about this whole thing. Like there's just, you know, we have access to therapy now. Like there's a lot of things that are very different that make it safe. But it took me a while to realize that. It took me a while to realize that we weren't just going to get repressed again, and that it was okay to like, you know, Junie was aware of me, but it took me a while to realize that it was okay to like actually communicate with them. So it was a couple of weeks, Junie trying to be like, who are you? Who are you? What is going on? And there were a few times where we were co-con and they caught it. It took a while, because at the time I was still in pretend to be the host mode, because that's like my default setting. So I was just, doing my thing like I always do, making sure things were done, washing the dishes, cooking food, organizing our schedule, things like that. And like Junie would be co-con and realize that, like, wait a second, I'm not doing these things. This isn't me. And then they would realize it was me. And they were just, it was a couple weeks of them like constantly yelling at me, who are you? Who are you? Who are you? And I couldn't just tell them. Because I wasn't sure if it was gonna last this time. So my only response was, you know who I am. Because they did. They do know who I am. They know who I am. They knew who I was the whole time. But they really needed to like access that memory of me themselves instead of having me just dump it on them, because the one thing that I have learned is really important in all of this is you can't force somebody to remember something before they're ready. And you can't, like, you really shouldn't, you yourself should not push to try to remember something before you're ready, or even before the rest of the system is ready. That's a thing we're working on a lot lately. Junie always wants answers, and Junie wants answers now, and I understand that, but like there are things that Junie might think they're ready to remember, but they're not. And even if they are, there are other members of the system that are absolutely not ready to learn some of these things. And like once the way that our memory kind of works right now is that like once somebody in the front has access to a memory, then like anyone near the front often has access to that memory. That's not always true. There are some of us who have the ability to share memories more than others, and there are still times where there's like complete blackouts that happen between people, and like whoever fronts next has no idea what just happened. That does still happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. And I completely lost what I was saying. What was I talking about? What was I talking about? This is real life DID, folks. So yeah, there was a lot of that happening at the beginning where Junie was trying to figure out who I was, and I kind of had to wait for them to figure it out, and they were very mad about it at the time, but I think they understand now. And then one day they just suddenly remembered who I was, and then they remembered me being around since we were really little. And it's very apparent now that like even though the system got repressed when we were a teenager and we were not self-aware, like we weren't aware of the rest of the system, we were just like operating kind of on autopilot for that long, which really sucks, honestly, because like when your system kind of goes on autopilot, it seems like you're functioning and living a full life, but you're really not. And that may not be like universally true. There may be some systems who function on autopilot and like are still able to like do what they want to do with life and stuff like that. But for us, it was kind of like we looked like we were functioning on the surface, but we weren't really. And that went on for 20 years. So, what was I saying again now? I'm sorry. I'm starting to get like a little bit blurry here, which is not great. Because there are other things to do tonight, and I'm not the only one that wants to do things, but I'm going to finish this first. Okay, so let me try to wrap it up and bring us up to today. So it took a while for Junie to realize that they weren't the only one in the body. It then took them a while to remember who I was, and then once that kind of amnesia barrier came down, there were a few others who came forward pretty quickly, and Those barriers were easier to deal with, I guess. But there are still quite a few that we don't know about, or that not everybody knows about. And maybe they aren't even aware of themselves yet, but we are far from uncovering everything that there is to know here. That's for sure. And I don't even have a current count of how many we're aware of. Sorry, I'm like trying to count quickly. So there's like maybe 15-ish that are known. But that is a rough count, and that is far from what's actually here. So, oh, I guess I can tell you a little bit about how our inner world works. So, our inner world is a spaceship, and on this spaceship, everybody who wants one at least has a room. And then there's like common areas and stuff on the spaceship. So it's been really useful to have a place to go where like everybody can be and everyone can feel safe and everyone can like have their own stuff, their own space, their own like whatever they need, and then a place like a physical place like inside where they can kind of figure out like what they even look like. Sometimes is a tricky one. That's a thing I'm still working on. I guess you would call me a shapeshifter in the inner world, which is weird to say out loud with this face on me, but I have like, my role being protector, it's like I've kind of always been whatever the system needs. So the way that I have presented myself to other people in the system, in the inner world over time has changed a lot. And we can talk about that again in another video. But I don't have my own appearance in the inner world figured out just yet, because I have appeared in many different forms. And the only one that I currently use often is cat. And there are certain members of the system who really like that and have needed that, and that's why it's happened that way. So right now there's a spaceship and there's an observation deck on the spaceship, so that's kind of like the jumping off point between the front and the inner world. So like if somebody wants to see what's going on in the front, they can go like sit in the observation deck, and then they can, like if someone's sitting in the observation deck, they're like very like close to the front, so they're going to be like co-conscious or like at least aware of what's going on. It's hard sometimes to get, like for Junie especially, it was really hard for them to figure out how to get into the inner world. So getting them to the observation deck has been the first step in that, and like they can't often go past the observation deck on the ship for some reason. They're just like blocked and like physically can't do it, but sometimes, most of the time now, they can at least get to the observation deck, which is pretty great. And yeah, the ship has a lot of cool stuff. I think there will have to be another video just about the ship, but there's like a river in this forest room where you can like go fishing for anything you want. So like if you want like Doritos on the spaceship, you gotta go to like the forest room and then go fishing in the river, and then you can have Doritos. Don't ask me why it works this way. I have no idea. It's just how it works. And then also in the inner world, so there's the spaceship, and then there's the void. And the void is this like big, dark, like darker than black. And I know that doesn't exist, but like this isn't You know, the inner world is like, doesn't follow real world physics. Okay, this thing is like darker than black and I can see it even though I couldn't replicate it out here. And it's this like giant moving mass, and there's like nothing that can not translate is the wrong word. There's nothing that can get through it, basically. Nothing that can transmit is the word I was going for, through the void. And there are things on the other side of the void. There are a lot of things on the other side of the void, in fact. And there are some altars on the other side of the void. So the problem is they can't communicate with the rest of the system if they're on the other side of the void. And they can't front, obviously, if they're over there. There are exceptions to that, and we can talk about that another day as well, but the whole thing with the spaceship was, you know, we needed a place for everyone to have a safe place to go on this side of the void, like closer to the front, so that way it's easy to like know where everybody is. People can communicate with each other, they can communicate with the front, they can front if they want to. So that's the purpose of the spaceship, and like the eventual mission is going to be to go bring everyone from the other side of the void to the spaceship. But that's going to be a while before we're able to do that. Right now we're still working on being able to communicate with each other really well and like switch when we need to, and we're still trying to figure out the host situation. I'm gonna let Junie tell you the story about that, but there's some interesting things going on with how Junie came to be the host, and that probably saved our life, because they basically, Junie like was born to like save us from autistic burnout, because we're autistic too, which is a thing we found out also in our 30s. And yeah, that's a good story, but I'm gonna let them tell that in another video. This is already so long. Oh my gosh. If anybody's still watching this, like, you're awesome. I guess I could wrap it up with that for now. So I've told you a little bit about who I am and how we found out we have DID and how our system kind of works. And I guess that's really it for now. I'm just gonna post this as is. I know this is not great video quality. It's probably not good sound quality. There's a lot of me kind of spacing off going, what was I talking about? But that's life. If we decide to keep making videos, I'll put in a little bit more effort. But like I said, I just wanted to get this video up in 2020. We are trying to get more involved with the online DID community, and I just wanted to tell our story a little bit. So that's me and that's us, I guess. And I'm sure, I know there are at least a few others here who wanted to talk also, so there will probably be more videos, and if you would like to see them, you should probably subscribe here, because this is going to be a YouTube channel. That's weird. And we'll just keep showing you what real life DID is like and what it's like trying to figure ourselves out here. A little late to the game, a little late stage, later stage in life, I guess. I don't know. I'm just rambling now. I'm gonna go, but I appreciate everyone who is watching. And if you have any questions, you can leave them here. If I have any like other links I want to leave, I'll put them down there or whatever. And we'll be back to share more about our life with DID in 2021. Bye.